Have you stopped beating your wife? No, I'm not married, nor have I ever been married per se. But before that, hello, my name is Mark Ashton Guevara, and today I'm going to introduce some ideas from standardized testing, the problems, dangers, and the people that actually own it. So let's go back to that question that I had mentioned earlier. Have you stopped beating your wife? Before I actually expand on that, I'm going to talk about how that question actually relates to students in standardized testing situations. So I've taken standardized testings in the past myself, and I'm sure you or even a child of yours has taken standardized testing as well. So before we even get to all that, we're going to go to explore first what and when standardized testing was implemented, then the dangers and the problems that come from it, and then lastly advocate ideas to implement change on it. So what's standardized testing, why it is necessary, and how it began according to Room 401 team in 2012. So standardized testing, you could say, actually started around China's hierarchy system, eventually moved on into America and about World War I to get these individuals more located areas to where they could work. What would be best suited for the individual to work at. So the Common Core State Standards Initiative and other laws had actually backed accountability laws in the process. And eventually, these laws were abused. So the problems, dangers, and effects of standardized testing. Before that, short clip.
So I asked the district at that point to give me the closest thing they could legally to the FCAT reading and math test, and I took it. 4 parts of the reading and 2 parts of math, and I pushed it in and had it computer scored and got my results back. And when I got my results back, I was shocked. I was shocked that I did very poorly on the math test. I did poorly on the reading test. That test labeled me as a poor reader. And I have a couple of master's degrees, and I've been re-elected 4 times, and I teach 39 graduate courses at 6 universities in this country, and I've been labeled that. And I knew then there was something really wrong with that particular test.
So, to what I asked you earlier, have you stopped beating your wife? Think about that question, for example. We're just assuming that there's a yes and no answer to that question. Have you stopped beating your wife? If you answer yes, you're saying that you have actually beaten your wife in the past, but you've stopped, which still has that negative connotation behind it. And if you say no, then you're also telling me that, you're beating your wife, which is not okay. So if we base it off a bell curve and we relate that statement or that question to students, according to the bell curve in Strauss 2015 from the Washington Post, there is a predetermined idea or set percentage that students will fail the Common Core, or the standardized testing per se. So let's reiterate. You have you stopped beating your wife statement. There's predetermined answers for that, such as the bell curve with standardized testing. There's a percentage that students will automatically fail the standardized test without a doubt. So if we use that in ordinance to Rick Roach, let's actually focus on the bell curve a little bit. So the bell curve assumes that people are going to do really well on the standardized test and that people will fail. That failure rate is what we want to abolish. That's what makes that bell system curve so faulty in itself. So we may move on to a counting argument, which is a very popular one. One could say that it measures achievements, but it doesn't actually measure individual performance, which is what we want, which is what standardized testing actually fails to provide. We want that individual achievement rather than an overall achievement based on a district or based on a school. That's what we don't want. Now, a lot of these test writers, scores, and their reasoning behind it. The journey that comes from it may be with a lot of students, which I myself am a student, and this is a past book I have actually had in the past. McGraw-Hill, Pearson as well, they have all been throughout everyone or most of everyone's school journey, including mine. Their expansion is worldwide. They do it for money. They have money falling in. They have contracts with these states for these standardized tests. In fact, they write, they score, and they own the standardized test provided with these $1 million contracts with states. So there's lots of effects that it has too. There was once a test question where the pineapple and the hare. The pineapple was racing a hare, and all of the animals that were watching it actually ate the pineapple. Now, there was a question on there that said, why did the animals eat the pineapple? Well, there's no real answer to that, which causes lots of confusion. So here's what we can do. Students time and time again have actually boycotted exams, according to John Oliver's Last Week Tonight program. So we could either boycott, we could form or join Facebook groups, we could raise educational standards, make equality, better teachers, better ideas, better products. We could effectively create accountability laws and make students want to be there, not have to be there. We could reform or even abolish standardized testing overall. So we can make a stand for not only you, your children, but for the future. So first, we went over the history. Then we went over the dangers and the problems that have it, and then the owners that actually own these standardized tests. And then we advocated how we could make a difference. Again, join or create a Facebook group, boycott the standardized test, and let's make education educational again.